This is a joint presentation with the Montana Department of Transportation, Matt King, and Eric Berkowitz with Geo.works. Geo.works, I'm familiar with Geo.works because of something that's going on in our state as well. So looking forward to this. Gentlemen, if you could introduce yourselves and take it away.
Yes, this is Matt King. I work at the Department of Transportation. I've been working there for 13 years. I graduated from Montana State University in 1993. For the last 8 years, I've worked in the right-of-way utility section, first starting out as a utility agent and then moving up to my present position, utility construction supervisor. Prior to holding this, I was division manager of a subsurface utility engineering for a private engineering firm.
My name is Eric Berkowitz. I'm with Geo.works International. We installed the system for MDT. I'm here mostly just to answer any of the maybe more technical questions about the system itself. Just a little bit of background about me. I started off in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They have a small uniform service. I spent about 26 years there, mostly focused on hydrographic surveying. So what did we do? We were mapping the ocean floor, something you cannot see. After I retired from or transitioned from the NOAA Corps to my civilian job, I started working for Utility Mapping Services and Geo.works International. And guess what we do? Well, we map stuff that you can't see. So it was a pretty good fit for me. I've brought my surveying and project management background and also data management. While I was in NOAA, we transitioned from a very what I would call product-focused use of data, like always worried about, what does the end product look like, versus then really managing the data itself, and then being able to produce various types of products because we were transitioning from paper-based charts to more digital charts. So we really focused more on maintaining, updating, and keeping a good set of data so you can produce the products whatever format you need or wanted. So that's a little bit about me. Hopefully Matt will get his camera going here soon.
At Montana Department of Transportation, the utility section acts as a liaison between MDT and the utility companies. When these companies have utility facilities located within state highway rights-of-way or want to have utility facilities located within the state highway right-of-way. Prior to 2020, when a utility company wanted to install a new utility facility within the state highway right-of-way, the utility company submitted a paper permit application into MDT's district utility agent. And we have a pretty big state here. We have five different districts across the state. And so depending on where the permit needed to, the utility was going to do the permit, sometimes they had to deal with multiple district utility agents because they would cross the district lines. At this point, MDT's district utility agent would process the paper application. And what that entails is the utility company would fill out the paper copy, and then they would mail it into or hand deliver it to the district utility agent in their office. And the district utility agent would have to go through that permit and go back and forth. It was a slow process. So once they got the paper permit all done and the facility was placed, then it was stored for future, as record for future use. These permits date back to the 1940s here in Montana. Over the last 75 years, MDT has processed and stored mountains of paper applications, inevitably with 5 districts and 5 different utility agents. Records were organized differently by each district, kind of based on their needs and how they felt they should be stored. This made going back and investigating what utility was located where within a stretch of highway right-of-way, a slow and cumbersome process. We were struggling with utility management as our system was paper-based, and only the person where the permit was physically located could pull and access the paper records from the file cabinets. That meant that often the headquarters here in Helena and other districts that needed to access some of this information, they couldn't just reach out and get it. They needed to contact the district utility agent for that district and have them go to the file cabinets and pull the records, and at that point email them to us, scan them, email them to us, or something like that. On the planning side, this created delays in understanding who and what was present in our right-of-way. The application process was cumbersome, sending paper copies back and forth to Helena for system impact and environmental. Changes of requests for additional information were through exchanging of emails and phone calls back then. Managing these complex procedures by these methods does not work well. It was difficult to track the process of an application. It was time consuming and labor intensive, and did not allow for effective communication, planning, or decision making. Coupled with the slow, cumbersome workflow, Montana is a growing state. Many areas, especially in western Montana, are seeing double-digit growth. Gallatin County in Bozeman has grown 25% since the 2010 census. Growth means more utilities, and we are trying to guide and manage the design of the utility installations for now and looking toward the future. Although many areas within Montana are rural, there are growing urban areas with limited space for new utilities. In these areas, it is even more important to effectively use and maintain the utility data. By doing so, it will help to better meet the needs for continued growth, new backbones for fiber optics, 5G, and in the future with electric cars and systems for trucks and cars with autopilot. MDT's goal was to streamline the current process, make it more efficient for both the applicants and MDT reviewers. MDT wanted to stop managing the process through emails and paper submissions and integrate a GIS data MDT maintains and uses. Bringing records into the 21st century is what we wanted to do, making it easier to coordinate activities internally and externally. So that makes it, we wanted it so that our folks in MDT and outside agencies, it was a lot easier for them to view the data and have access to the data. One of MDT's longer term goal was to have as-builts that will provide efficiencies in the design process. Instead of estimating utility costs based on a percentage of the project estimate, we would have actual data and information about what and who is in the right-of-way. That would help to better come up with an estimate for an up-and-coming project if we had the actual data of what kind of facilities were in existence in the right-of-way. We could, and if they were going to be impacted, we could come up with a better number for the estimate for the total project cost. MDT is a kind of a data hog. We collect all kinds of data, but we didn't have any tools in place to really use it. We had the paper copies, but they don't always show exactly where it's at or if it's still in existence or that kind of stuff. In the future, we'll be able to better estimate and have a better understanding of the utility issues and how much of an impact would be caused by relocations. There are design solutions that could be implemented if we knew exactly what was kind of out there, and if there was a big pipeline, maybe we could shift our design a little bit and or do something along that lines to kind of minimize the impact to a bigger utility of a nature like a pipeline. In the spring of 2016, the second Strategic Highway Research Program, or SHARP-2, offered a utility bundle as part of their implementation assistance program. The utility bundle was made up of 3 areas. It was identifying and managing utility conflicts, which is R15B, 3D utility location data repository, R01A, and utility investigation technologies, R01B. Each of these areas had implementation dollars assigned to be used by the successful state applicants in the specific areas. Noting that these areas closely align with the goals of MDT, we started looking into the possibility of using the funds that were available from FHWA. One of the initial challenges was trying to get the detail written up for both the FHWA funding and the RFI, and the right detail into the RFP to get what MDT needed and wanted. MDT recognized that the managing utility conflicts and 3D utility location data repository portions of the utility bundle could be used to pursue a commercial off-the-shelf permitting system and a utility data repository. MDT applied for and was awarded the utility bundle in 2016. MDT immediately moved forward with a request for information to see what products were available. Then we followed up by a request for proposal outlining MDT's needs and requirements for the new system. In keeping with our strategic goals, we were looking for a solution that allowed us to keep all information related to utility permits: who, what, where, clearances, what outside agency permits were needed, what construction company completed the work, what are the actual dates for the work, number of inspections, etc. In one centralized location, giving us more consistency over time, easier access to the information, and enabled us to make better decisions and improves our planning and design. Things that were not possible with our old paper process. We evaluated different softwares and solutions. Some of the key points were to have a solution that was able to utilize GIS data we readily have available: routes, districts, district boundaries, sections, township ranges, all that data that we already have on our GIS system, and contained 2 main modules is what we wanted. One for project utility design and as-builts, which included the SU data, and one module to manage the utility permit application and review process. The software selection process took about 3 months. We were looking for a commercial off-the-shelf system. We didn't want to be the only organization using a system with specific customizations, because these applications become expensive and they can become obsolete in the system if the system was specifically built just for our organization. Of the vendors that submitted proposals, we found one that we felt had an integrated solution to manage utility as-builts and utility permits in a single integrated solution. That firm was Geo.works. In 2018, MDT and Geo.works finalized a contract to provide these systems for MDT. The system that we use is known as Geo.works and contains different modules for right-of-way management. MDT selected the permitting and as-built SU modules. The system for MDT is known as UPAS, Utility Permitting Administration System. For the permitting part, and for the ULDR, for the Utility Location Data Repository. So in reality, there is no difference as the vendor merged those two functionalities into a single web geographic application. The system guides the user from the project design to the utility permit review, as-built data collection, and monitors and reports on all phases of the process as they're going through it. Collecting procedures with the mapping workflow enables data analysis based on geographic location. And this is critical a lot to the environmental approval process. Some of our workflows are complex. Many applications require a clearance for structural impacts, environmental compliance, and traffic control requirements. All clearances are managed within the UPAS system, and the system provides real-time tracking for all users. So they can always tell exactly who has the permit, where it's at in the process. Initially, we had intended to not really intend to, but had not thought about what possibilities are available with online processes versus the paper procedures. So during the configuration of the customization of the system, we made some changes as we learned more about what was capable. It was kind of a struggle. It took some time to analyze and look at the new system and the new processes, so we didn't kind of just repeat the paper process. That, you know, we're trying to think outside the box. We eventually decided to keep all internal procedures in the system, such as environmental and structural reviews. They are managed in the system. This paperless review reduces the total processing time and allows tracking all internal review steps. So that was kind of nice, because you can, everything's just contained in one. You don't have to have a separate environmental checklist. We incorporated into the UPAS system and into our permit. We implemented 2 workflows for a single utility notification and another for managing occupancy and encroachment permits. So what we did is we have a notification permit, which the utility company goes and fills out this notification permit online in the system, and that just notifies MDT of maintenance work or other kind of work that they're going to be doing on their facility. Like if a power company is going to go out and replace a bunch of power poles on a highway right of way on one of our routes here in Montana. They'll go into the system a couple days in advance, a week in advance, whatever they want to do, and fill out this notification permit. And what that'll do is notify our district utility agent and our our maintenance folks in that district, and they will know that a utility company is going to be out there working at a set amount of days and dates to change out the power poles. All that information will show up in the system. Plus, it'll if they need a traffic control plan, it'll be attached to that notification permit. So we started the project in September of 2018, and we had the first release open for testing in June of 2019. Starting from our current workflow, the team focused on guiding the external users step by step to reduce the mistakes and phone calls from them on how-tos. The design and development methodology was very agile. We received our first prototype in December of 2018, just 3 months after the kickoff for notification permits, and had it totally functioning version by March of 2019. There were some bumps in the road along the way. There were tough sessions where I thought we will never get this project delivered. We had some varying demographics within our utility division. We had some pushback, as expected, with any major changes to procedure. Had a few software configuration issues that created some uncertainty. Some utility companies were concerned about the as-built collection, with most concerns being about additional costs associated with surveying as-builts for utility installations. In April of 2019, we organized a presentation for utility companies, engineering firms, and we did that across the whole state of Montana. We held 10 meetings across the state to collect additional concerns and input from utility companies, and to understand how usable was the application. MDT UPass team set up, like I said, 10 meetings. We had the cities, everybody that submit permits for utilities to MDT. We had them all, we invited them all. The meetings were to present the system at its current state that we had it at that time, you know. The biggest pushback was regarding the as-built. They were all concerned about how tight we were going to ask for the surveying of the points for the as-builts. What are the rules for boring or trenching? How to handle offsets? We put in our permit that we're going to have a 90-day submittal for the as-builts after the construction is complete. So we had a lot of discussion on that, as if that was enough time for them. They had questions on how do we get surveyors out during construction. How do we deal with the above ground facilities? So we took all that into consideration as we were continuing to produce the application. There is a technology fee for submission of an occupancy and encroachment permit, but not for a notification permit. We just collect. There's a fee to keep the technology up and running. MDT doesn't collect that, but there is one, and it's only for occupancy and encroachment permits. The question arose about existing facility And does the utility company need to survey in those facilities? And MDT didn't make that a requirement because there's a lot of facility in the ground already, and eventually it's going to get replaced when we widen roads and do work in the right of way. So we didn't make them. We're not making them go out and tone locate and survey in existing facilities. We're just implementing the as-built and surveying it in from the start date of when we put this out. Utility companies were a little excited about the timeline for our release. We originally thought we were going to release it, or we were going to try to release it in early 2019. But after going out and meeting with all the utility companies and talking to them, that's like the start of a really busy construction time for them. And so they didn't want to be trying to learn our new system and be at the peak of trying to get the facility in the ground before the snow started to fly again. So MDT took that into consideration, and we decided to postpone the rollout of our new application. So we set the date as of January of 2020. That's when our permitting process, online permitting process, officially started. We did have kind of some utility companies that wanted to play with the system and start putting in permits ahead of time. So we had a couple companies that we invited in, and they started submitting permits online prior to the January. But as of January 2020, that's when everybody that's going to turn in a permit in the state of Montana has to do it on the UPass system. Perception of the as-built requirements from the companies that already had equipment and were used to mapping their utilities didn't really have too much of a issue. The companies that do not have the equipment or personnel to conduct the surveys voiced the most concern. They were a little excited trying to figure out how to make that work. Early on in the process, we were thinking that we were going to have a requirement for a PLS or a PE to stamp all as-builts that were submitted into the ULDR. But after we went out and held the meetings with all the utility companies around the whole state of Montana, we relaxed that a little bit. And we would like to have a PE or a PLS submit the data so that we know it's really good, accurate data, that it's somebody was overseeing it, some professional was overseeing the data that we were receiving. But we did relax it and let the utility companies certify their own data that they submit to the ULDR to us. After we went out on the meetings, we made some other system improvements, like the environmental checklist that's online now. Used to have to fill out the old checklist and then make a PDF and attach it and send it in. So we changed that and actually incorporated the environmental checklist right into the permit itself. The design and development was very agile. We received our first prototype in December of 2018 for this part of the software, which was just 3 months after the kickoff for notification permits, and had a functional version by March of 2019. We were worried about getting the right information and workflows together. We needed to get so many people together at MDT. A couple times we missed the mark, but eventually things came together. We got the right people in the room, worked our way through it. Environmental, like I said, was a significant change from the direction we initially started. We started with a PDF upload of the environmental checklist, and then we moved to an actually integrating the environmental checklist within the system. MDT didn't just replicate the old paper process. We took a step back and looked to see if there was a better way to do things and take advantage of the new tools that the system can and could provide. One permit for one route is what the old paper method was, because it was easier to file them if there was only one route. With this new system, you can see where the permit is, and so it can cover multiple routes. We had a hard time getting our people to move away from this process because it was so ingrained. It was just sunk in their heads. This is how it needed to be, and so when we're trying to get them to see it this new way and how much easier and better it was, it took us a little while. So we're going to have a little video right now that kind of we took out on the road with us when we were meeting all the utility companies. There has the video that you're going to see. There is a lot of differences. We've added more stuff in. We didn't have the environmental checklist in at that point and stuff. But this is just kind of a video that kind of shows the online permitting.
Let's select Utility Permit. Go to Applications, New Application, and click on Utility Permit. Start with the wizard to center the map on a specific location and draw the boundaries of your work area. UPass is a GIS-based system, but you don't need to learn GIS software to draw on the map. Type in a route number, then zoom in or zoom out using the mouse or your fingers if you have a touch screen. Pan wherever you like, then select a drawing tool. Next, enter a name for your project and describe the scope. After saving, send your request to MDT. If the data repository does not have any as-built data within your work area, UPass will automatically set up your work area, allowing you to complete your application. Otherwise, MDT will review and respond to your request. Once your work area is set up, enter UPass, select your application, and click Edit. You will see ULDR on the tree to the left. Right-click and select Export to download existing utility as-built data in either CSV or shape format. You can now use as-built data to design your project, avoiding or verifying potential conflicts in your own design environment. If you want to import CSV or shape files, right-click on Utility Design and select Import. Otherwise, use the map drawing tools. Point and line to create your alignment. After creating the design, you can enter and modify attributes. For example, utility type, subtype, and permit type. UPass then asks whether you have an existing occupancy agreement or encroachment permit that covers the original installation of your facilities within the work area. Additional questions follow. Next, enter the permit applicant and the permit owner. They might be different if you have a consultant or contractor applying on behalf of the utility owner. Proceed by confirming or editing the work description previously entered. Red lines around the work description box indicate this information is required. Enter emergency and constructor contacts. Proceed with entering a time frame for the work. Enter an estimated execution window and working days. Working days float inside the execution window. The maximum execution window is 2 years. Your work cannot start until at least one full business day after approval of the permit. You will be required to answer additional questions, and depending on your answers, the system may prompt you for more information. For example, if you are proposing to install near or on an MDT structure, you will be required to upload a structure encroachment report. private utilities are required to justify requests for longitudinal installation. Next, you will draw the line area within MDT's right-of-way that will be occupied during construction. This includes staging areas and traffic lanes taken out of service due to traffic control. You will be prompted to draw the proposed occupation areas on the map. You can draw points, polylines, and polygons, or modify the shape. Left-click once for each node, and double left-click to end the line. As you can see, the system shows another permit has been already issued in the same area, displaying a company name and estimated time frame. This function allows you to optimize your activities, avoid conflicting work, or, if desired, combine work. Use the map tools to create the proposed occupation areas. When you're happy with your geometry, click Next. UPass automatically detected route number, mileposts, county, and MDT district. In addition, UPass detected section, township, and range. If these values are missing or incorrect, you can enter correct values in the boxes on the right. Before submitting an application, you will have to attach a completed environmental checklist and design and construction documents. Then make the payment and click Submit. UPass confirms the application has been submitted. If MDT requires additional information, you will receive a UPass-generated email. To respond, enter UPass, select the application from your Action Required list, add information or make changes, and send it back to MDT. After MDT has completed its review, you will receive another UPass-generated email. If MDT accepts your application, enter UPass, download and review a draft of the permit, and click Accept. You can then download the approved permit. When the permit is issued, UPass sends an email to the constructor. The constructor clicks on a link in the email to open a UPass interface and communicate an actual start date and the end date when work is fully completed. When construction starts, UPass sends an email to notify the surveyor. As-built surveys can be completed using line-of-sight survey equipment or GNSS devices. If standard survey codes are used, the procedure is fast, easy, and straightforward. Let's take a look at the field surveying. After establishing proper survey control, points are surveyed along the utility using standard survey codes. The surveyor checks the results and creates a CSV file containing the data fields required by UPass. Next, the surveyor logs into UPass, opens the project under Action Required, right-clicks on the as-built line in the tree, and imports the CSV file. The UPass wizard checks the data format and suggests how CSV file headers should map to UPass. The surveyor makes corrections by associating the CSV header names with the corresponding UPass names and verifies the CSV data fields are mapped correctly before proceeding. Survey attributes are editable in a table format. After completing this procedure, the surveyor clicks Submit to trigger a review by MDT. An email will be sent when final review is complete.
Hey, Matt and Eric.
Looks like we're getting a little close to the end here, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk about this or open it up for questions, I think, maybe, Gavin?
Yeah. And thank you for the video. That actually answered a couple of the questions, and actually some that I had. I think it is great to see that permitting process, you know, the workflow in it, and the inclusion of the surveying steps and how to get that data in. So there's a couple of questions here, and we only have about 5 minutes for questions, but does the MDT reserve the right to inspect projects where as-builts have been submitted by utilities without PE or PLS stamps, or do you do that on a regular basis?
We do. What we do is if a PE or a PLS submits the data, then we don't do per se spot checks on the data. But if a utility company submits it that they didn't stamp it as a PE or PLS, then we do reserve the right to inspect that data and check on it and make sure that it is accurate.
Okay, a couple of questions on what is the relationship between UPass and the Montana 811?
UPass is just right now is just MDTs. 811, you still have to call 811 anytime you do a construction project and or you're going to dig in the right of way and or on private property. So they have their set of maps, which ours are going to be a lot more accurate as the information comes in, because we are requiring actual survey data, and we're requiring level 3 and level 4, which is 3/10 horizontal and a foot vertical.
Yeah, and right now it's not really connected. I don't think they have as well developed a 811 system with a lot of records from the network providers in a format that's easily ingestible. But if that data was there, I mean, this is basically really simple GIS information that is shared through web map services and web feature services. So any sort of GIS data can be pulled into the system if it's there. It wasn't done this time, but it can be if needed.
Oh, okay. Well, Matt, that was a pretty rapid implementation of this system. Did you have? Well, I'm trying to read this. Was there a lot of people power needed to handhold people through the process in the beginning?
What we did is we went out and did the meetings and showed them kind of the video and what was coming. And then what we did is we set it up in Helena to have trainings, and we had half-day trainings. We had I think it was about 60 seats per training, and we had 10 training sessions, I believe. So what we did is we tried to train the trainer for the companies. We tried to pull in a couple key folks that were going to be the ones that mainly would be submitting the permits, and train them. And then we sent them back out into the field so that they could hopefully train their folks. But what we do is on the dashboard of the UPass system, we do have videos that handhold and walk you through the whole permitting process. And you can also download a paper version and print it off at your own leisure. And you can, it step-by-steps you through the permitting process. And our district utility agents out in the district, if you are a utility out in Billings, let's say, and you're having issues, have never built a permit yet, you didn't quite understand the walkthrough video, our district utility agents are also helping out to go to the utilities office, or the utility come to the state office, and our district utility agent will help walk you through the process. And I do have a guy that works for me, Ed Matthews, that this is all he does is UPass. He shares screens all the time. People will call in with questions, concerns. If they're having a difficulty with some step or something's not quite working right, they can reach out to Ed, and he's a guru on the system. He can get them through the process very quickly.
Okay. Hey, Eric, people are asking, are there other places where something akin to this has been implemented or are in the works?
Are there other places that something like this has been implemented or in the works? Well, not yet. We have we're working with TxDOT right now, potentially on a contract with them to implement this very similar system, or same system basically, with TxDOT. They are looking for a little more on the project management side with conflict analysis and conflict resolutions and maintaining all of that information in the overall process. So you would start with, early on with the utility investigation. If you don't have all of the utilities in there, you suspect not, you might get SUE data collected. That would all be brought in. You start making some engineering decisions. You identify the conflicts. You start working on what those resolutions are. What are those going to cost? All of that stuff tracked within the system, and then sort of again managed as that more of that overall construction process from beginning to end. Then obviously, if there's utility that has to be moved, they might have to go get that permitted. So that permit feeds off of that whole initial project, and then they come back in and say, all right, well, we've moved it. It's in place. Here's our survey data. Now you guys can, if there's some compensation involved with that, then they get paid for that move. So it's a little more involved, but MDT is kind of the first one. And like Colorado, MDT is sort of pushing forward with collecting this information, they started with the permitting process because if you put something in the right of way, you got to have a permit, right? So it just kind of follows that all the way through until the end, until the as-built are submitted.
Okay, yeah, the permitting process is definitely a place for this. Gentlemen, thank you for your presentation. We need to move on.